Steamed games! Just like everybody else, I can't help but buy too many games on Steam. I have so many games in my library, in fact, that if you shared them out equally to every resident of Bitchfield, UK, all of them would say thanks, I guess, but what the heck am I supposed to do with this? It's been a long time since I've played most of these, so I thought it would be fun to search the archives of my brain and give a quick review for each and every single one of them. Maybe I can tell you some new games to play you haven't heard of before, or maybe you can just get your current opinions validated. It's all good by me. So here's the ground rules. There's a lot to get through, so I'll try and keep them brief. I won't be able to say everything I possibly could about every single game. I'm only talking about games I've played enough to have a fair opinion on. No, I tried this for 5 seconds and hated it type crap. We'll split it into 3 sections, single player games, multiplayer games, and then a section for VR games to have some semblance of structure. And I'm not doing number scores or anything because they suck. Okay, let's go. Starting off with the single player games. 10 Million, a puzzle game about matching tiles to traverse a dungeon. It's a neat concept, but one that's not really deep enough to sustain the time it takes to beat it. Good for an afternoon. You must build a boat. The sequel to 10 Million. The base concept of tile matching is the same, but there's a few new mechanics added and more progression in the upgrade system to flesh it out a bit more. It's nice. Never expected a sequel for a game like this, but it's cool that they made one. 60 Seconds. It plays mostly as a text adventure about making choices to survive in a nuclear fallout shelter. There's some funny writing in there, but it rarely feels like your choices matter because you have so little information to use to make those choices with. The one main song from it is burned into my brain though. Alien Shooter. Mindless hold the fire button down top-down shooter. Plays like a flash game, but like a really good one. Alien Shooter 2 Reloaded. Take the first one and scale it up and out by adding a ton of new weapons and big open maps and all sorts of fancy extras, and you get this. If you liked killing a million aliens in the first one, this one lets you do it again, in style. Zombie Shooter. Swap the aliens for zombies and then shoot a massive fuck ton of them. Another game to space out to. Amid Evil. A top quality boomer shooter in a dark fantasy setting. It's got really cool weapon design, tons of equally cool enemies to kill with them, and it flows really well and it looks gorgeous. Absolutely an icon of what a modern boom shoot should be. Banished. A colony building sim set in some medieval-esque period. The twist is that it's really hard. You will go through a bunch of doomed dead villages before you finally manage to survive your first winter, but it's very rewarding when you finally do. The difficulty is pretty heavily front-loaded though, so once you've got past that initial learning phase, it's pretty easy for your town to survive indefinitely, and there's not much reason to keep playing after that. It was fun while it lasted. The Binding of Isaac. Technically a top-down roguelike shooter, but it hardly feels like one. It succeeds where most roguelikes fail by making every single run feel totally different to play. The items you get make a massive difference in how the game feels, and that keeps it fresh for a long time. This gives it amazing replayability, which is exactly what you want from a game like this. BioShock. An FPS in an underwater city that lets you shoot lightning from your hands and is also a critique of capitalism. Definitely in my top 10 games of all time. The combat has so much room for creativity in it, and then the game actively encourages you to explore that creativity, and you feel like a genius. I still find myself thinking about the messaging of this game to this day. I wish that BioShock movie had actually happened because that could have been great. Blood, a classic build engine FPS. Incredibly satisfying to beat and some of the best sound design in an FPS ever. I'm not joking, listen to this. Breath of Death 7. There are no others. A turn-based RPG written as a parody. Pretty simple, but there's some good laughs in there, and it's so cheap that you can't complain. Cthulhu Saves the World. Another turn-based RPG from the same guys as Breath of Death. It's another parody, but it is genuinely funny. I remember getting some good laughs from the writing in this one. The mechanics are nothing spectacular, but they don't need to be. For a game this cheap to have as much content as it does, it feels like stealing. It's a really good deal. Oh, and the soundtrack is great. You can tell people behind this one had a real love for what they were making. Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons. An experimental game about teamwork. It does a couple of neat things with the concept, but it's mostly about the atmosphere and the story. I played it as a co-op game using Steam's Remote Play Together feature, and that made it a nice way to spend time with a partner, but you can play it solo as well. Brothers in Arms, Road to Hill 30. A different take on the standard World War II FPS game because now you get a squad of guys to order around as well as your own firepower. In fact, you'll actually have to give them effective orders to actually get anything done, which makes you feel important. It gets formulaic pretty quickly though. Every combat encounter devolves into squad suppress these guys while I flank and kill them all. And it doesn't do enough to mix that formula up. Brothers in Arms Earned in Blood. Sequel to the previous one, and plays exactly the same. Kind of a slog to get through because I was already bored of it from playing the first one, but more of the same if you like that sort of thing. Brothers in Arms Hell's Highway. Another sequel, but my favourite of the three. They add just enough mechanics and set-piece sequences to stop it getting quite so repetitive. Some of it borderlines on gimmicks, but I still applaud the attempt. If I went back to the series, I would probably just play this one and leave the other two. Bulletstorm, an FPS all about killing guys in creative ways for points. A neat concept, but honestly it didn't leave much of an impact on me. It was solid, and I liked it, but I don't remember much of it. If you like FPS, you'll like it, but it's not groundbreaking, and that's just fine. Got a bunch of COD games coming up, so just so you know, I'm only talking about the single players for these. I played the multiplayers for a lot of these for a long time, but that was all on console, and you don't need me to tell you how they played. Call of Duty 1, a World War II FPS, obviously. A good foundation for what was to come. Seems generic by today's standards, but that's just because everyone else copied this. Worth playing to see the history of the franchise. Call of Duty United Offensive, an expansion to the first one. As with most expansions, it's just more of the same without really adding anything new. If you liked the base game and wanted some more to play, you play this. Call of Duty 2, the same as before, but way better. Probably my favourite campaign of all COD games. If I want to be immersed in a World War II FPS game, this is the game I play. Grenades are annoying, but other than that, it's hard to pick faults with it. I can still hear the voice barks when I try to sleep at night. Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. The same again, but now in the present day. Wait, what do you mean 2007 isn't present day anymore? Instead of making you feel like a soldier, it makes you think about what soldiers are for. That might sound too deep for a COD game, but I genuinely think it earns it. What it does best is in setting up moments, having you go through them, and then remember and think about them afterwards. The moment-to-moment gameplay isn't anything really that special, but it tricks you into thinking that it is. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. The same again, but now even bigger and maybe a bit silly. I still really like this one. Even if the concept of a Russian land invasion of the US is ridiculous, getting to see it on screen is absolutely incredible. It's got a lot of great moments that stick with you, which is what you really want from a game like this. Call of Duty World at War. A return to World War II, but not in a way that feels like a total repeat of what came before. Mostly because we're not doing D-Day and Americans in France all over again. It really tries to focus in on the brutality of it all, which gives it a different flavour to what we normally see in this setting. It's basically unplayable on veteran difficulty, but that's nothing new for the franchise at this point. These games aren't about the challenge, it's more about the experience. And an honourable mention to the Zombies mode, which I have spent countless hours of my life on. It's honestly one of the best co-op experiences ever made. Call of Duty Black Ops. Now we're in the Cold War, ooh! I remember liking this one more, but I replayed it recently and it was just kind of okay. The campaign doesn't have many big moments I latch onto, and without those, a modern COD game is left feeling pretty hollow. I played this one for the multiplayer mostly back in the day. The Coin Game. A world full of simulated arcade machines that you play as much as you like without the hassle of begging your parents for more change. Coin pushers, claw machines, that one where you drop the balls into the cup. It's all there. Honestly, it's freaking amazing. I can't think of another game that makes me feel like a kid again as much as this does. It was worth the price when I last played around with it years ago, and there's been a ton of updates since then, so I'm sure it's only gotten better. If you want the joys of childhood gambling without the price tag, then go pick this up. Company of Heroes. Yeah, I like World War II games, and this is an RTS one. It makes some concessions to the game's genre and away from the setting, which can be a little jarring at times, but I get why they did it. It often has the same RTS campaign problem where you just build a bunch of strong units and march them around the map murdering everything, rinse and repeat until you win. But I like the setting and it executes it well. Company of Heroes Opposing Fronts. An expansion to the previous with 2 new campaigns and 2 new factions. The new factions feel different enough to the original American one that you feel like you're getting a different experience, so worth a play if you want more of this game. Condemned Criminal Origins. First-person melee combat game with a horror setting. It manages to do a lot with really only a few mechanics. Smacking a homeless guy over the head with a metal pipe never gets old. It could have afforded to be a bit longer, but that's a good problem to have. Confess My Love. A mostly cute little game about repeating the same 5-minute loop over and over trying to get something new to happen each time. I got it because it was free and I was curious, but it's a nice little thing. It's less of a game and more of an experiment in storytelling, but it's pretty cool that people exist in the world that like making stuff like this. Cook, Serve, Delicious. A cooking game that plays like a touch-type training tutor. Incredibly satisfying to master, chaotic as all hell, and as addictive as diet crack. I can't think of many other games like it. I should play this again sometime soon. Darkest Dungeon. A turn-based strategy in a grimdark Lovecraftian hellscape. Let's start with the good. The atmosphere it sets up is really well executed. You do kind of feel like you're going as crazy as your party members are. The art is beautiful, I could look at these abominations all day. And there are some real interesting strategies and choices to be made in the combat system and how you build up your team. But it can end up being a pretty frustrating game to actually play. The randomness is through the roof. I get that things can't always go my way, but there are so many random factors that can happen at so many different moments, it's impossible to keep track of them all. And the game is just so damn grindy. I played it for over 20 hours and I'm nowhere near finishing it. But I've already felt like I've seen everything the game has to offer, so playing more of it would just be like watching reruns. I like a lot of what it did, but I feel like I got enough out of it already, so I don't see me ever going back to finish it off. Dark Messiah of Might and Magic. A first-person melee-based fantasy RPG. It has one of the best melee combat systems ever made, and a good variety in the way you approach your combat encounters. The kick is probably overpowered, but that's part of what makes it so good. Deadlight. A 2.5D platformer set in a zombie apocalypse. Mechanically, it doesn't do anything interesting, and I remember the plot being pretty lame, though I don't remember exactly how it went. Nice to see a different take on a well-trodden setting though. The Dead Linger. I think everyone has a Kickstarter game they got burned by story at this point, and this is mine. It was meant to be an open-world zombie survival game back when that was still a really cool idea and not an outplayed cliche. I bought it from the first day a test build was released and dreamed about how cool of a game this was going to become, but it never happened. It went through a really troubled development, and it was eventually completely cancelled without ever releasing a playable game. I genuinely don't think the developers were being malicious. It feels to me like a case of inexperience coupled with a dangerous dose of overconfidence. I do hope the devs from this went on to make something better with those painful lessons learned. Desync. An arena FPS about getting stylish kills in a synthy world. The core concept is mostly well executed, but then they make some weird design choices that go against the core concept of landing all these cool combo kills. Enemy attacks are often really poorly telegraphed. Some enemies are immune to knockback, which is the main mechanic used to score combos, and the default weapon sucks. It was still fun though, and I'm a sucker for that scanline retro wave aesthetic, so I did enjoy it. Don't Starve. A survival crafting game from back when those were new and novel. It's brutally hard, but most of that comes from the rather awkward way you have to control it. Once you figure it out, it's not too bad though. I managed to get a survival playthrough to the point where all my needs were accounted for basically forever, and that was enough for me. It's more of a game about learning what you can do rather than mechanical execution. Doom, the original one. You know what Doom is. I mean, I hope you do. You know, Doom. Doom! Personally, I don't have any nostalgia for it, and it's a little too simple for my tastes, but I do have an immense respect for it. So many games I love descended from this guy, so I feel like I owe a small part of my soul to it. But I see it more as a cultural touchstone than a video game at this point. I played it for the history. Doom 2. It's weird how little this adds really, while being labelled as a full sequel with a big 2 on it. No other thoughts, really, it's just more of the same. Doom 3. It's still an FPS. It's cool to see a different take on the Doom setting, even if everyone ended up complaining about it. As with most id titles, the biggest impact it had on gaming was its engine, which has this high contrast lighting style I absolutely love, and I hope indie throwback shooters start replicating it because I really want to see more games with that vibe. Doom 3 Resurrection of Evil. More of the same. Doom 2016. It would be weird if this wasn't an FPS. It's a real banger though. It took all the ways we imagined kicking ass in the old games and made them real with a AAA budget and a modern engine. It's crazy to think that this is already 8 years old now because it really felt at the time that this was the game that was going to save the video game industry, and a bunch of other big studios were going to follow suit, but that never really happened. A great game nonetheless. Doom Eternal. Amazingly, not just more of the same. Yes, the core of it is similar, but it has enough differences to feel like a totally new game compared to the previous one, which is essential to making this one feel worth the time. It presents you a challenge, gives you the tools to beat that challenge, and then asks you to get good enough with them to earn your place at the end of the game. The power fantasy feels so much better than most games because you truly have to earn it, and that to me is what makes the new Doom games so good. Duke Nukem 3D, the original build engine FPS. To me, Duke as an entity is bigger than this game ever was, but it's still a great game. Combat is solid, exploration is rewarded, and the one-liners are endlessly quotable. If you don't like it,
blow it out your ass.
Dusk. My favourite of the throwback indie FPS genre so far. It captures the feeling of a good 90s game without being limited by that feeling. It does enough things differently to feel fresh without adding too much and becoming convoluted. It feels like something the Quake devs would have made if the computers of the time could have actually handled it. An instant classic. Factorio. Building game about making huge automated factories. It takes the creative elements of base building mechanics and then gives them real purpose beyond just making cool looking castles. Everything you build serves a purpose and you can constantly make things better, more efficient. If you like logic puzzles and want to be rewarded for your ability to solve them, this is a game that will keep you awake until 3 AM. Be warned. Fallout New Vegas. Just like everybody else on the internet, this is my favourite Fallout game. It just does a great job of creating a world that feels real and alive and then letting me make meaningful decisions that impact that world. It's very rare in this game that you feel forced to do something a certain way. There's almost always a solution that will fit the character you're trying to play as, if you're willing to look for it. It's a testament to the writing. I hardly ever skip dialogue in this game. It's written that well. You can believe that you're talking to a real person who has a life before the game spawned them in 5 seconds ago. The immersion is on point, and I love an immersive game when I can get one. Far Cry 5. Open world FPS. I have a secret to share. I do not care for the Far Cry series. I know they're meant to be good, but I just don't feel it. It feels more like crossing off a long list of checkboxes than playing an actual game, and this is coming from a RuneScape player. I've tried the second one as well, and that just feels like the same but with less mechanics in it. Drive to place, shoot guys, claim the area, drive to next place, repeat. I feel like I'm missing something when I play it because it's got all the signs of a good game, but doesn't actually feel like one to play. Maybe I'll come and bang this one out at some point just to see the end of the storyline. Fear. Oh look, another FPS. I don't care if it's an illusion, the AI in this game is top notch. When you win a fight in this, it really feels like you overcome a dangerous adversary that could have beat you. Not many games can give you that rush. I want to go and replay this one soon. Fear, Extraction Point, and Perseus Mandate. Yes, I'm playing more of the same, and I'm sure I felt this way before. Feeding Frenzy 2 Shipwreck Showdown. You're a little fish who has to eat other fish to get bigger so you can eat the bigger fish. This one's a total nostalgia pick. I played the original on PopCap Games when that was still a thing. It's a flash game, enough said. Forager, a game about getting stuff to help you get more stuff. I got all the achievements, so it must have been doing something right. It's like if you took a game's progression system and made that the whole game. It's made with love and I enjoyed playing it even if it's not really that deep. Number go up! The Forest. First-person survival with heavy horror elements. There is a plot and an end goal to this one, though I never quite got around to finishing it. The horror is what sets this apart from other survival games. The feeling of being truly isolated and alone in a scary place is really quite unsettling, and it's got systems in place to build that up slowly without relying all on jump scares. The base building system is pretty advanced as well, but I find it takes too long to build anything big, so it's more effort than it's worth. One of the better survival games out there. Fossil Echo. A short platformer trying to tell a narrative. It's mostly a game you play to see the cutscenes and say you've done it. It's very pretty and the soundtrack is lovely, but there's nothing special in the gameplay. Play it for the story. Half-Life. An FPS, but with a narrative? It's more likely than you think. My only real complaint about the game is how inaccurate the assault rifle is. Other than that, it's an all-around solid title that pushed the entire medium forward. I won't go on about that too much because I'm saving that for another game, but playing this is like seeing photos of your best friend when they were a baby. A lot of what we take for granted today started here. Half-Life Opposing Force. Expansion to the previous. I like this one a bit more than the original actually. I remember the ammo economy being a bit more forgiving and the new weapons helped beef up the arsenal a bit more. Made for a better experience. Half-Life Blue Shift. Another expansion to the previous. Kind of the ugly duckling of the three. It's pretty short and doesn't have anywhere near as much to add as Opposing Force did, so it feels a little bit empty. It's like a snack game. Tasty, but not that filling. Half-Life 2. Another FPS, sequel to the first one. This is the game Valve created to push Steam, and it clearly worked because, well, here we are. It was a big win for physics engines and pacing and narrative design, but for me, the combat just isn't that great. And since that's most of what you're doing, it falls a little bit short by today's standards. Though I feel a bit bad for saying that. A lot of it existed to make people in 2004 go, wow, I didn't know video games could do that. Half-Life 2 Episode 1. I won't reuse the more of the same line here because these two episodes do actually feel different enough to their base games. There's new enemies, new level design ideas. It feels like a real attempt to add more to the concept of the original game rather than just padding more content onto the end. And it continues the story, which is nice, it's a good story. Half-Life 2 Episode 2. The biggest gaming cliffhanger ever made. I think it speaks to the quality of the writing of this series to see how mad people got that Episode 3 never came out to finish this plotline. Bit of a shame really, but they managed to find a way to fix it in Half-Life Alyx, which is a pretty genius move. More on that later. Half-Life 2 Lost Coast. It's a tech demo. It's very pretty. Heretic. an FPS but in a fantasy setting. It's kind of one of the truest Doom clones ever made, which by the way is what FPS games were called before the name FPS came about. You take Doom, paint over it with a fantasy magic brush, add a few new features, and this is what you get. It's like a total conversion mod, but really well made by people who got paid to do it. Hexen 2, a fantasy action RPG FPS. It's kind of amazing that they managed to build a real RPG out of an engine where the only real interactivity was shooting stuff and running face first into buttons. The ambition is clear, but so are all of the wrinkles. The Quake 1 engine is not very good at melee combat, which this tries to use a lot of. And the level and puzzle design is cryptic to a fault. I had to use a guide to get through it from a very early point because otherwise I was just running in circles. It's a relic of a different time. A time I love, but one we've moved on from for a lot of good reasons. Homebrew Improvisation Furniture Sandbox. A silly game about assembling flat pack furniture. The fun comes from how badly you can cock up the stuff you're building until it's unrecognisable as any kind of furniture. You can play it with a friend to amplify the silliness as well if you want. And it also has VR support. There's not a huge amount to it, but it's good for a few laughs until you get bored of it. Hotline Miami, a top-down action murder them up. A masterclass in getting a lot of play out of very few mechanics. It sets up a premise, executes it really well, and then leaves while you still wish there was more. One of my favourites. Hotline Miami 2, wrong number. Be careful what you wish for. If the first is a masterclass, then this is a crash course. The base mechanics of Hotline Miami is so simple that it's really hard to expand on them, and you can see that struggle in this game. They add more gimmicks to the characters, they add gimmick enemy types, and they all struggle to really add anything substantial. It ends up just muddying the water of what made the concept so good to begin with. But I don't blame the creators for that. They'd set themselves up a really hard act to follow. Worth playing if you're desperate for more though. Indie Game the Movie. It's a movie, not a game, but it's in my Steam library so I will mention it. This was made back in 2012 when the indie game scene was nowhere near as big as it is now, and the idea of making a paid game without a big studio behind it was really quite new. That makes it something of a historic relic, a view into the way the industry used to be. They also talk a lot about what it means to be creative and the pretty substantial toll it takes on you and your life when you dedicate yourself to making stuff. A lot of that really resonated with me, who is someone who is desperate to be creative to an often unhealthy degree. Yeah, some of it falls a bit flat because we know in hindsight that all these games did mega well, so some of their fears of failure don't quite hit as hard as, but that's a nitpick. Worth a watch if you're into game dev at all, or just being creative in general. Insane Aquarium Deluxe. A simple little game about keeping a fish tank running while aliens try to eat your fish and fish poop money. It's another nostalgia PopCap Games pick from me. It's all about snowballing from a small start into a big massive boulder of fish and coins, and that's pretty satisfying. It's as deep as the fish tank you play in, but that's absolutely fine. Into the Breach, a turn-based roguelike strategy game. Control giant mechs to defeat giant bugs who are trying to destroy the world. I love this game because it has almost no randomness to it. You know what move the enemy is going to do next turn, and it's your job to react to it the best you can. This turns every move into a puzzle to solve, and there's a lot of creativity you can use to get yourself out of almost every situation you find yourself in. And it does the key thing that roguelikes need really well, which is to make every single run feel like a unique experience. The different robot teams all play completely differently, so no two games ever feel the same. It's challenging, you need Rick and Morty levels of IQ in order to beat it, but it's very worth it. Judgment, apocalypse survival simulation, half base builder and half pseudo RTS. Demons take over the world and you have to form a colony to try and survive and start fighting back against them. It starts out strong with good progression, loads of stuff to craft and build. You're basically in an arms race against the demons to get yourself good enough weapons by the time the stronger ones start spawning. Good stuff. It kind of falls apart in the late game though. When the toughest enemies show up, it's a huge spike in difficulty, but then you get the best tier equipment and they become trivially easy. You also just run out of new stuff to build before you reach the end of the story, so the last few hours were a minor slog. It has been updated since I last played it though, so maybe some of this has changed. I liked it well enough. Kingpin. A classic boomer era FPS. This one wins way more on style for me than on function. A lot of the weapons are horribly inaccurate, which makes them a pain to use, and the extra little mechanics they add to make it more than just an FPS are not that functional. But the style, it oozes with a curse word laden charm that makes it impossible to hate. I still hear the cutscenes in my head to this day.
Motherfucking balls.
The Last Stand Legacy Collection, a collection of 3 classic Flash games. The first 2 are wave defense games and the third is an RPG. As Flash games go, these are some of the best that ever got made, so it's nice to be able to play them again all these years later. Of course, they're not going to be that deep, so you'll only really be playing these if you knew them already, or have a lot of nostalgia for games of that period. The Long Dark. a first-person survival game about staying alive in the freezing cold. It has both an open-ended survival mode and a story mode with a plot. It gives a lot of attention to mechanics that would barely matter in other games, mostly the temperature mechanics. Everything in this game revolves around staying warm, and it's not something you can do easily. There's no monsters, nothing like that, except for the horror that is freezing to death in a ditch somewhere. It makes for a really grounded and therefore really immersive experience. I want to revisit this one sometime. Magic 2014. It's Magic the Gathering. You know, the card game. It's a single player campaign experience for it from 10 years ago. What else is there to say? I played it back when I had no one to play the card game with. Manhunt. Third person hyper-violent stealth murdering game. Playing it back now, it seems kind of silly how up in arms people got about it because it's so tame in comparison to the games of today. Like, yeah, you're choking a guy to death with a plastic bag, but it has like 16 pixels to show you it. I guess we all had powerful imaginations back then. Anyway, I love this game. It builds an atmosphere like you're truly living through a horror movie, with tension so thick you'd need a chainsaw to get through it. Any sections with guns suck though, I'm not sure why they added those. I wish Rockstar would go back to this franchise, but I know why they never will. Max Payne. Third-person shooter built around diving to the floor in slow motion. A quality action game that wears its cheatiness with a smile. You shoot, you die, you reload, you repeat. Beating this game is solving puzzle shootouts one room at a time. So if you thought that Sudoku needed more bullet wounds, it's a great game for you. Also home to the best fourth wall break ever made. Max Payne 2, The Fall of Max Payne. It's the first, but polished to a mirror shine. You do lose some of the charm that those old low-poly corners had to them, but it is a technically better game all around. Max Payne just gets maxier. Max Payne 3. Now that mirror has been smashed into pieces, but rebuilt into the shape of a swan or something. It's not quite the same thing, but still great in its own right. You shoot straighter, but die quicker, so it's like ramping up the stakes way past 11. I like it. Feels like a more modern take on the classic, with all the good and bad that brings. Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance! I have a dream where one day every game in this nation will be as good as this one. It's a third-person hack and slash where you play as a cyborg ninja while your opponents lecture you about the evils of the military-industrial complex. What more do you want? On the serious side, it is an absolutely quality game. It manages to somehow be profoundly deep and also downright hilarious at the same time. It's really satisfying to get good at. It rewards you for playing that good. And despite having 3 hours of cutscenes in it, I never felt the urge to skip a single one because the delivery on almost every line is superb, and the plot skirts that line of being so nuts that it works perfectly. It's no wonder this game is a meme factory. It has so many good moments to remember in it. My only complaint is how badly it teaches you its own mechanics. I almost gave up on the thing at first because I couldn't get the signature parry system to work. After some googling, I found some people with the same issue, and hey, it turns out the tutorial just doesn't explain it properly. But I am so glad I figured it out because otherwise I would have missed out on this gem of a game. Definitely worth playing. Mirror's Edge, a first-person free-running parkour game. Parkour mechanics have been done a lot more by now, but for the time, this was a cool new way for a player character to get around. Even now, I haven't really played a game that feels exactly like this one. Maybe I should try the sequel. It's best when you just get to run and go as fast and as far as you can manage. When the pacing slows down and it puts you in little boxes with guns, it feels like you run into a brick wall. I wish more big studio games were willing to experiment these days like this did. Nation Red, a top-down shoot-'em-up with zombies as the fodder. The thing that really sells this is the random perk system. You kill stuff and unlock new abilities until you become this ridiculously overpowered Lord of Death that explodes everything on the screen. The only real goal is chasing the achievements, which I spent way too much time doing, but it's surprisingly good for what it is. Necrovision, an FPS set in World War I of all places. You'd think the setting would lead to a rather dull game, but it goes places that you never would have dreamt of, and that's why I love it. It loves to create chaos, throw you into the center of it, and then throw its hands in the air and say, go on, have fun. It's pretty janky, sure, but then you chop a guy's head off with a shovel and it doesn't matter anymore. Necrovision Lost Company, an expansion that is a prequel to the previous. It adds some gimmick levels and feels pretty different to the base game, although I don't like it quite as much. It didn't really stick with me like the original does. Neo Scavenger, a survival game with turn-based combat and an actual end goal to aim for. It's best when you first start out and you don't have a clue what you're doing. Surviving each and every hour feels brutally difficult, and just one wrong move can leave you dead with a local youth chewing on your toes. But once you figure out the dominant strategies for combat and getting food, the game becomes trivially easy. I won't spoil them just in case you want to find them out yourself, but I do still really like it. The setting is unique and the atmosphere it sets up is immersive enough to make you fear for your life, which is always good. Ninja Kiwi Archive. It's a collection of old Flash Flash games made by Ninja Kiwi. There's so many in there that it would take forever to list them all, but it's free, so if you like Flash games, I am certain there'll be some in there that you enjoy. Painkiller Black Edition. A good old arena FPS. Enter a room, kill the waves that spawn, then go to the next one. It's got fun weapons and a huge number of different enemies and settings to kill them across. They all feel a bit disjointed though, so it can feel a bit incoherent. But you're not supposed to care about that. It's a gamey game, if that makes sense. And it's always good fun. Paint the town red. I got this when it was just a melee fighting sandbox game. I know the dev was trying to make it into a roguelike, but I haven't played that much, so I can't really comment on that. Smashing people in the face with the chair and such, but there wasn't really much to it back then. Painters Guild, a cute little management game about making paintings. This was a web game originally before it came to Steam, and sadly it never got much development beyond what was in the web game. You've seen all there is in about 30 minutes, and then you're just looping that and hoping something new will happen. But when it doesn't, you feel pretty disappointed because there was a real potential here. A bit sad really. Papers, Please. A passport control simulator. Proof that you can make an engaging game about absolutely anything if you make it well enough. It drags a bit too long, but not enough to ruin the experience. It's the sort of title that inspires me to try and make my own game someday. Paranautical Activity. An FPS roguelike. As much as I love bunny hopping and circle strafing, you don't seem to do much else in this game. The upgrades were cool, but the money system means you rarely get a chance to actually use the most expensive and interesting ones because you can never afford them. I beat it a couple times, but that was enough for me. Partisans 1941. A real-time strategy about carrying out guerrilla operations in German-occupied Russia during World War II. I like World War II settings for games, and the eastern side is one that isn't as explored as much as the western one, so I'm glad we got to see something with a different perspective to the usual World War II game. I don't know how historically accurate it is, but it feels authentic, and that matters more to me here. I ended up liking it quite a bit. Party Hard, a pseudo-stealth serial killing game. Sorry to be mean, but I hardly liked it. It feels random whether you get caught or not a lot of the time. There aren't enough tools in levels to let you get all the kills you need, so you just end up waiting around so you can pick people off one at a time. So then it ends up playing at a too slow a pace for what the music and tone is aiming for. You end up with something that's totally jarring to actually play. It's not for me. Portal, a first-person puzzle platformer. Another great example of taking a single mechanic and building around it to its fullest to create a seamless experience that just works. It does everything it wants to do and then graciously ends without wasting your time. Many modern games could learn from this approach. Portal 2 Electric Boogaloo. I started typing this up and then realised I was saying the exact same thing as I did for Hotline Miami 2, if any of you still remember that far back. And yeah, these two franchises share the exact same problem. The first game is purposefully short because it did all it wanted to do. How do you add more to something that you've already called done? Portal, however, does do this better than Hotline Miami does because the new mechanics are actually fun. Though you are always going to have problems when you take a 3-hour game and stretch it out to be 4 times as long. It's more Portal, and more Portal is good Portal, but I was full before the game brought out the pudding, if that makes any sense. Postal, a top-down shooter about killing people just because you can. Now look, don't take this the wrong way, I love blood and guts in my video games just like every other true alpha video gamer on the planet. Grr. But the game is violence for violence's sake. I get that they're trying to send a message, but I'm just not the guy that needed to hear it. It would have gone super hard as a Flash game. I'd have gotten 1,000 detentions trying to play this in school. Postal 2. For once, a sequel very different from the original because now it's an open world FPS. And it goes much more into the edgy humour side of things rather than just being plain edgy. It's a game specifically designed to piss off all those people who get offended by violent video games. Since the writing is totally humour based, your enjoyment of it rests solely on whether the jokes land with you or not. For me, it's about 50-50. The main character, the Postal Dude, is great. Hilarious, in fact. But the other characters, not so much. On top of that, the shooting is mid and there is no level design. It's not really for me. Project Zomboid, the most thorough exploration of an open-world zombie survival game ever made. I bought this originally when it was on Desora, who remembers that place? Despite playing from a top-down isometric viewpoint, it can be surprisingly immersive to get into. There's just a huge amount of mechanics present in the game and a lot of systems that can make a lot of different stuff happen in each playthrough. It's also been updated a lot, so it's a massively bigger game than the one I first bought all those years ago, and it's still being worked on now. The fan base of the game is often quite critical of the way the dev team has handled this game, and some of that is fair. I'm not going to get into that now, but I would just say if you're going to pick this game up, do it for what it has in it now, and not for what you think they might add in the future. I think it's worth playing in the state it's in. Quake. Here we go. Quake is my favourite game of all time. You'll have to forgive me for a second because I'm going to gush now. As far as I'm concerned, Quake is the most important video game ever made. The cosmic entity we refer to only as John Carmack made an engine that could run fully 3D graphics in real time on your shitty 1996 desktop PC. I cannot overstate how big of a deal that is. Not 2.5D, not sort of 3D with some tricks in there to fool you. Full, honest to the Dark Elder Gods 3D. Yes, some other games had played with it before, but Quake did it best, and did it well. Every game I love today owes its existence to Quake. It is that important. Oh, what's that? You like PvP deathmatch in your FPS games? Quake basically started that too. You're welcome. Whew, sorry. I don't know the next time I'll get a chance to talk about Quake, so I'm taking it when I can. Anyway, that was all nice, but how does it actually play? Yeah, about that. I'm a fanboy, so I know I'm biased, and I love it like my mother loves her failure of a son, but the rational part of me knows that it's not all that amazing by today's standards. It struggles to ever make things truly challenging because the mechanics of shooting stuff just isn't really that deep. It's rarely ever wrong to do anything but blast every enemy with the strongest weapon you have. The layout of the levels is great, but the aesthetics are pretty uninspiring. The movement feels amazing, but you never need to use any of its depth unless you're speedrunning. Add that to the list, by the way, Quake invented that too. I'm still hoping that Quake gets the Doom 2016 treatment and gets a modern take on the series, but there doesn't seem to be any push for that at the minute. The remaster on Steam, though, is excellent. They did a great job with that. If you care about the history of games, especially FPS ones, this is a must-play in my book. Now, I better stop talking about it before I pass out. Quake 2. I don't care what it's called, this is not a sequel to Quake. The mechanics are mostly the same, but they trade out the monsters and castles for aliens and space. Stuff we've seen a lot more of since this came out in '97. Anyway, petty fanboy criticisms aside, it's still a great old school shooter. Everything feels satisfying to blast. Level design is, again, perfectly functional but aesthetically bland. There's a plot now, apparently. And the leaps in tech from the previous one are again really historically significant. I still think it holds up really well. It's got a great remaster and it's totally worth playing if you like 90s gaming. Quake 3 Arena. This one took the deathmatching of the previous two and made it into its whole own game. This part is just for the single player campaign, which is a series of bot matches against increasingly stronger AI. It's basically a tutorial for the online mode, but it can be hard to get into that starting from scratch against players with a 20-year head start on you. So this could be a good way to simulate that experience for those of us who missed the bus on that one. Quake 4, a sequel to Quake 2 and the alien cyborg thing that was doing. The upgraded graphics in the Doom 3 engine really helps push more of the body horror stuff that the world wants to go for, and I kind of love how it looks. It has some awkward teething troubles of the era. Games were trying to mature and add more diverse mechanics and narratives, and Quake 4 clearly attempted to follow some of that crowd. Vehicle sections, squad mates, cutscenes, it's all normal stuff for a game of the time, but not always the right call for a franchise about blasting monsters while running at the speed of sound. Overall, I still like it a lot though. The missteps are more charming and quaint rather than being downright horrible. Rage. A first-person shooter with some racing elements. This one gets a lot of flack for being its worst game, and yeah, competing with the best games ever made might make that technically true, but the worst of a great bunch is still a good game. The shooting is solid for a game of the PS3 era, and the engine was, as always, a big step up from what came before it. The enemies in this game are truly a joy to fight. All the gangs have their own little personalities and ways of attacking you, and the barks that they do to communicate in the heat of battle make it all feel very meaty. And yeah, there's driving too. That's okay. You can see pretty clearly all over this game that they didn't get to do and add everything they wanted to. A lot of it just feels unfinished and rushed out the door, which is a real shame because the foundation of it was really good. I will always be a Rage apologist. I still think it's a fun and important game for the FPS genre. Railgrade, a railway building puzzle and management game. I haven't finished this one yet, but I'm mentioning it here because I believe it deserves some more attention. If you like the logic puzzles that factory building type games present like Factorio, but want it in nice little bite-sized chunks, then this game is for you. It's not a big sandbox game, it's about beating smaller individual levels, which makes it good for shorter play sessions while keeping most of what makes this sort of game good. Watching the trains go around in a factory you designed yourself will never get boring. Red Faction, yet another retro FPS. Yeah, I play a lot of them. The main gimmick of this one is meant to be the way you can destroy the walls and terrain with explosives, but it's so rarely relevant that all you're left with is a pretty average shooter. A lot of sections are really frustrating, there's clear balance issues, it's just not a fun experience. This is another one I played more for research than fun. Red Faction 2. A sequel to the previous, but mostly in name because it feels totally different. It's mostly a super campy romp through an action movie plot. It's more fun than the previous one, but there's still very little actually to it. A pretty forgettable game. Red Faction Guerrilla Remastered. Third-person action, but who cares about that? The whole point of this game is the destruction system, and the game is kind of an afterthought, for better and for worse. The destruction really is the best in any game I can think of, the sort of stuff I thought would be in every single game by now, and I don't get why we can't have that, but I digress. Once you get bored of blowing up stuff and watching it fall over, there isn't really much left to enjoy. It's a pretty generic open world go do missions here and there type stuff, and they don't tie the best selling point, the destruction, into the main mission gameplay very much, so the rest feels a bit flat. Your enjoyment of it will be proportional to how much you like destroying things. If that's you, go nuts. Refunked, a tiny little first-person platformer, what I'm calling the snack game. It's short and sweet and that's all it needs to be. Return to Castle Wolfenstein, another FPS. A lot of my fellow classic shooter enjoyers love this one, but I'm sorry, I really don't get it. Your weapons are horribly inaccurate, while hit-scan enemies can insta-kill you as much as they want. Save scumming is a must at a lot of points, so you're just not getting through it. I tried my best to like it, but it just doesn't work for me. Reyes, or at least I think that's how you pronounce it, a strategy game about being peaceful gods trying to make humans happy. It's a chill game, but I find it a bit too open-ended for my tastes. Your only real goals to aim for are the Steam achievements. Having to choose your own time limit for each game is a weird design choice too, I don't get what that's there for. It's one I should probably revisit at some point. It has been 9 years since I last tried it. Rogue Legacy, a 2D side-scrolling roguelike. The big selling point is that every run the character you use can be vastly different because they all have different classes and abilities and weird quirks. Some of the quirks are completely unplayable though, but luckily you never really have to play a bad character if you don't want to, but then I ask, why are they there in the first place? I do really like the way the game handles progression though. If you're good enough, you can try and beat the game on a really early attempt, but if you fail, you still get to purchase upgrades to make your next run a little easier, so eventually, everyone should be able to beat it. It's a fair way to do things. Roller Coaster Tycoon 2, a theme park building game, or perhaps the theme park building game. I'm rolling all of these into one because that's how I play them using the modern OpenRCT 2 version, which you should do too if you play it. The great thing about Roller Coaster Tycoon is that you can play it however you want. There are scenarios with real goals to achieve to give you structure if you need that like I do, but the game is deep enough and lenient enough that you can usually pass them no matter how you do it. On top of that, there's so much that you can do with the tools it gives you that you can go absolutely wild if you want and build the best theme parks ever. Really, a timeless classic. If you want to see just what's possible on this 22-year-old game, go check out Dirklink and other RCT2 YouTubers. You will be amazed. Rome Total War. Real-time strategy combined with turn-based management on an epic-sized overworld map. What this game does best is scale and breadth. By that I mean you can have huge battles with thousands of guys on screen, but also the total number of different units that exist in the game is enormous, so there's a huge number of potential battles that can play out. All the units match up against each other in some big crazy 5-dimensional rock paper scissors puzzle, and winning battles is about trying to always give yourself a favourable matchup, or using superior strategy when that isn't possible. The enemy AI is actually competent enough to give you a decent challenge, though it can start to get a bit predictable when you've played for a while. Still, a historical classic of the genre. Serious Sam Classic The First Encounter, an arena FPS that's all about insane enemy counts and massive maps. I like the concept, but it mostly just boils down into holding left mouse button and the S key. With so many enemies to get through in each encounter, it can easily turn into a mind-numbing slog. And then when you die and have to do it all over again, it can get super tedious. Sam is a seriously fun character though, so that definitely raises it up a few points. Best played in short bursts. Serious Sam Classic The Second Encounter. More of the same, but with a bit more stuff. There's new weapons, new enemy types, and a bunch of new level themes. If you like the first one, you can't complain. But if you don't, you probably can. But then why are you playing it? Serious Sam 2. This one is my favourite of the Serious series and a really fun game overall. The pacing is way better, you progress through the levels way better with less running backwards, the weapon selection is better and more fun to use, there's more enemy variety and more gameplay variety, they ramp up the humour and the dialogue and lean completely into the cheesiness of it all. Yeah, sometimes it can be a bit cringe, but never painfully so. I love this one. Serious Sam 3 BFE. And then they just had to go and ruin it. I don't want to be harsh because they clearly were trying their best to make something good, but it feels to me like a massive step backwards from number 2. They clearly wanted to return back to the spirit of the first game while also trying to modernise it to keep up with other shooters of the time, but it didn't need it and it ends up throwing away what made number 2 so good. It's a return to running backwards and getting a headache. All the fun and camp and colour is replaced with realistic sound and a serious plot line. I don't get it, but a lot of people prefer this to number 2, so maybe I'm crazy. Serious Sam Double D XXL, a spin-off of the series that turns it into a side-scrolling shoot 'em up. The big gimmick is how you can bolt weapons together into of cool combos to get yourself absolutely absurd levels of firepower. It's a fun mechanic, but I just ended up bolting all my best weapons into one monstrosity and never switching off of it, which I don't think was the intention. Luckily, it's a short game though, so it doesn't overstay its welcome. Serious Sam: The Random Encounter. Another spin-off, this time into a pseudo turn-based RPG. I'll be real with you, it's got some serious balance issues. I'd often play the same encounter the exact same way multiple times, and somehow succeed the second time but not the first. Ironically, because of how random it is. You often just don't have enough tools or options to beat the encounter that you're presented with, so you get stuck. It ends up being more frustrating than fun. I always appreciate an attempt to try something new though. Shadow Warrior Classic Redux. Another FPS on the build engine, just like Duke Nukem 3 and Blood. If you like those two games, you'll like this one too. There's enough stuff that's different to make it worth playing in addition to them as well though. This one never stuck with me as much as the other two did, however. I just find Lo Wang to be the least cool protagonist of the three. Shelter. A sweet game about leading your badger cubs to safety as a big mama badger. It's cute, it's charming, it's really pretty. You can't help but feel attached to your little babies by the end of it. A lovely little game. SimCity 4 Deluxe, an absolutely classic city builder. It takes a bit of learning to understand how it all works, but the tutorial actually does a pretty good job of explaining most of the main rules you'll be needing to build a good city. There's no real goal beyond don't go bankrupt, but building a thriving metropolis is rewarding enough on its own. It spurs that logic-based creativity which I really love in my sandbox games. There's all these interconnected systems that dictate what will and won't work, but they make intuitive sense when you think about it, so you're never truly lost on what to do, and they all help guide you into making a city that looks cool, but also looks mostly like a real city. And that soundtrack, oh, it's so good. Banging game. Sin Gold. Another classic FPS. Nothing groundbreaking, but a good bit of fun. It never takes itself too seriously, and neither should you. Play it if you're into 90s shooters. Singularity, a somewhat more modern FPS. A sadly common story of unfulfilled potential. There's some really cool mechanics and ideas being thrown around in here, but the game clearly had a troubled development and got rushed out the door before there was time to explore all these ideas. It's a shame, but what they managed to salvage is still pretty good. Sniper Elite V2 Remastered. A third-person shooter with a high focus on sniping and stealth. I'm a big fan of this series. It manages to let you do stealth combat with really loud weapons in a way that makes total sense. It's really nice to have more options in a stealth game than just melee takedowns and silenced pistol shots. Though, of course, you can still do those. The maps are big and you get a whole box of tricks to use, so you can really approach each level exactly how you like. There's some rough edges in this one that still need to be smoothed out, but not enough to ruin it. Sniper Elite V3. And those edges start to get smoothed out. A new setting, prettier graphics, more tools, and just a better experience overall. Solid improvements all around to the previous. Sniper Elite 4, they just keep getting better and better. I really like how the AI works in this one. It's all tailored to make them a fun experience to fight. They're smart enough to react to you logically, but not so smart that you can't outsmart them. And they're generally predictable enough that you can plan in advance and catch them out in traps. A really great game and a great series. Zombie Army Trilogy, a spin-off to the series made between the third and fourth games. It swaps out the German soldiers for German zombies, but keeps all of the depth of the sniping mechanics, which makes for a fun experience. Landing a headshot at 300 meters just hits different when you have to earn it. The main issue is when they try to do something different to mix up the formula. The special zombies end up being the worst part of the game, and they kill the pacing due to how awkward they are to fight. I get why they exist, but they could have been done better. Anyway, I love a zombie game done well, and this is definitely one. Plus, you get to shoot Hitler. Who doesn't want that? Sock Pop SO9 Pyramidia. Sock Pop's thing is making these little mini games quickly and selling them cheaply to give you bite-sized games to chew on. This one's a village management sim. It's cute, it's sweet, you can't really complain for £3. It's another one of those games that inspires me to try making one of my own someday, because it shows they don't have to be huge or complicated to be fun. Spec Ops: The Line, a third-person cover shooter. Now, we have to get mad here because you can't actually buy this on Steam anymore as of writing this script. I recommend sailing the 7 seas to search for a copy if you catch my drift. It's an absolute shambles that shit like this is allowed to keep happening in the games industry, especially to a game this good. What makes it good? Narrative. If you ever wanted a game to make you question your life choices, Spec Ops is the game to play, and I mean that in the best possible way. It doesn't hurt that it's attached to a really solid cover shooter system. Great game, bring it back. Stalker: Shadow of Chernobyl. First person shooting in a radioactive open world. Stalker is frustratingly amazing. It has so many brilliant elements, but equally as many baffling janky mechanics that I want to slap it as much as I want to kiss it. The atmosphere, amazing, as immersive as can be. But then you get into combat and what? I shoot this guy 30 times and he's still alive, but the next guy goes down in a single shot? Oh cool, look at all these mutated creatures and lore and world building, and oh no, a bandit did the grenade no jutsu and spawned a grenade at my feet, I'm dead, load the quick save. It's a game that needs patience to fully appreciate, either to mod the game to fix the mechanics or to work your way through them on the game's strange terms. I can't help but love it though. Stalker: Call of Pripyat. Sequel to the previous, though there is also technically the prequel Clear Sky, but I didn't get around to finishing that one. The mechanics are smoothed out quite a bit compared to the first one, so it's a less frustrating experience to play without sacrificing what makes the series great. This one is a smaller game though, so the progression isn't quite as deep as the first one. Still, I like it a lot, and I am so hyped for Stalker 2 whenever that comes out. Stardew Valley, a cozy game about farming, making friends, and lots of other little nice things. This is to me the good kind of checklist game. There is a huge number of different goals to accomplish, and mostly total freedom about how you go about completing them. There's a lot of variety in the gameplay between all the different things you have to do, so it rarely feels too repetitive. It's all about progression, but in a relaxing, go at your own pace sort of way. I enjoyed it a lot. It's that fantasy of a simple life and being happy that we always dream about. State of Decay 2, third-person open-world zombie survival game. It's got all of the standard fare for a zombie game of its kind. Sneak around, loot stuff, shoot them in the head, build a base, that sort of stuff. But all of this stuff is executed to a professional level, so that helps elevate it up a bit higher. Plus the character system actually creates some interesting moments and a bit of legit role-playing, which is a nice touch in a genre that can easily become a bit mindless. The inclusion of special infected also helps add much needed variety and challenge to it, so it ends up being quite a bit more than the sum of its parts. Strafe, an FPS roguelike. Maybe roguelikes just aren't my thing because I wasn't really into this. I didn't feel like there was much difference in how the game played between each run, which is kind of the whole point of a roguelike. It also often felt almost impossible to avoid damage with how much stuff was going on at once, and the difficulty really spiked up somewhere around the midpoint of the run. I beat it 1 or 2 times and that was enough for me. Stronghold HD, a strategy and management game all about building a massive medieval castle and conducting good old siege warfare. It's very satisfying to build up your base and rain down arrows on the attackers when they come and try to knock it down. And I can never get enough of how the villagers talk to you when you click on them and hit you with that "Morning, your lordship." My only complaint is how little strategy there really is to it. It's more about how much stuff you can make in the time you're given than it is about the ways you can use the stuff you have. This also makes all the offensive missions suck pretty hard because you don't have many options to win other than cheesing or brute forcing it. Do your best to ignore those though, and it's a pretty good game. Super Crate Box, a free little arcade game. Shoot the bad guys, pick up the crates, each time you do, you get a new weapon. Be careful not to hit yourself and see how long you can last. It's fun, it's free, what more can I say? System Shock, a first-person immersive sim, assuming you're familiar with that term. Basically it means an FPS RPG with extra steps. You're stuck on a spaceship full of robots and mutants who all want to kill you, and you've got to try and use the limited resources you have to get through it all in one piece. There's a lot of depth in how you build your character. You can't be good at everything, so you need to specialise and make decisions on how you want to play it. The atmosphere is as oppressive as it should be in that situation, and the storytelling is really quite nice. It can be a bit obtuse to get into, as there's a lot of mechanics and they're not all that well explained, but there is a hot AI lady that belittles you for half the game, so that's a big bonus. Teleglitch Die More Edition, a top-down shooter roguelike, one I've actually never managed to finish. It's designed to be brutally difficult and has strictly limited ammo as part of that difficulty, which is a questionable choice as it leads you to needing to use the awful melee attack. Maybe that's the point though. I will go back and beat this one day, I owe it that much. Terraria, a side-scrolling open-world game where you explore and fight monsters and build stuff, and probably even more activities I'm not even thinking of. It's funny how this was called a Minecraft clone when it first came out, because it has been expanded so far beyond that original game, it's probably 10 times as big as it started out, and is way more than just a 2D crafting and mining game nowadays. If I was to sum it up, I'd call it power scaling the game. Everything you do is to acquire some new source of power that's going to help you beat some stronger foe that will drop some cool new thing and repeat from there. It had a lot in it when I last played, and it'll probably have a ton more added since then, so if you like it, you'll have enough to keep you busy for a long time. Deus Thou, a short top-down shooter made by the game dev YouTuber Miz. The key mechanic is how you can mind control guns to shoot them with your mind, which is something I've never seen done before, and it's definitely fun to play with. It's not a long game, but I got it to support a small developer, and I don't feel like my money was wasted. This War of Mine, a hard to categorize game about surviving in an active war zone as mere civilians. You're pushed to do whatever it takes to stay alive, or as much as your morals will allow. I like how every playthrough at some point will ask you to make difficult choices with no truly correct answer. The morality system is handled in a pretty gamey way, but that's a nitpick. It's a game that does one of the most powerful things a game can do, which is to make you feel something. It's a very depressing game, and I know most people won't be into that, but I think it's depressing for a good reason. Not every game has to be all about the fun. To the Moon, a storytelling experience about memories and loss. There's little in the way of actual game mechanics, it's all about reading the nice dialogue while listening to a really good soundtrack. The story got me, I probably cried a bit at the end. If you want a heartfelt story, then this is for you. Tomb Raider, the first of the remakes. Third-person action adventure and exploration. As a big fan of the originals, it's hard for me to see the reboot series as anything other than a massive downgrade. Sure, the visuals are very pretty, but you give up so much readability to get them that they have to give you Batman vision in order for you to know what the heck you're supposed to do. And Lara as a character is just so whiny now. No amount of watching her get hurt is going to make me like her anymore. Pain is not character development. Gameplay wise, it's fine, it's competent across the board, but it never does anything amazing. It all just feels a bit bland to me. Tomb Raider 1, the original. Now this is more like it. Classic and very early 3D platforming. Yes, everything is made up of cubes, including Lara herself, but it makes the rules of the world very consistent. It's usually very easy to figure out where you need to go next because you always know what you're capable of. The world follows its own rules. You go to a lot of visually distinct and interesting places, even if your imagination has to fill in the gaps a bit. It won't appeal to everyone, it's very clunky by today's standards, but to me, it's a great start to a great series. Tomb Raider 2. Bear with me a moment because they made a few of these. It's more adventures with Lara. Go to some new places, and you can drive vehicles now, cool stuff. Probably my least favourite of the original Tomb Raider games, mostly due to just how many dang water levels there are. But still, a solid classic. Tomb Raider 3. Here we go again. Another solid addition to the series. There's a bit too much focus on modern environments like London and Area 51, and not enough tombs for my taste. But it's not bad enough for me to hate it. Tomb Raider 4. Definitely my favourite Tomb Raider game ever made. The big last hurrah of the original series. Rather than jumping all around the world, they focus in on one single setting, ancient Egypt, and really go through everything that makes that place cool. The mechanics are the deepest out of all the games. The levels the most expansive and interesting, and that main theme, it gets me every time. Transmissions, Element 120. A free fan game in the Half-Life universe. It essentially plays as a Half-Life 2 mod. I don't remember much of it now. I played it 6 years ago and it's less than an hour long, but I remember when it ended I could have played more, which is a good sign. If you're into Half-Life and wanted more in that world, then give this a go. Turok, another classic FPS. Unlike most of the games of the time, however, it focuses on big, open and non-linear maps. I had to resort to a guide a handful of times to beat it, but it's not too bad. I'm a guy who really doesn't like a lot of backtracking, and Turok asks you to do that quite a bit. Luckily, running around in this game is kind of fun in its own right, so that helps mitigate it somewhat. It's not exactly my thing, but it's definitely a good game, made by people who care. Unreal Gold. One more classic FPS. This is the game that started the Unreal Engine that is everywhere now. And my god, is it an absolute historical gem of an engine. There wasn't much that looked as good as this at the time that this came out, with maps that were huge for the time as well. Unfortunately, the gameplay side of things doesn't quite hold up that great. I feel like I'm repeating the Quake story here, but it's true. I guess when you're breaking new ground, it's hard to know what to put in that ground. Enemies can get really dang bullet spongy, and a lot of the weapons are really hard to use because the arsenal is full of weird, quirky projectile things. They look cool, but sometimes you just want a gun that kills things. Still, this one goes into my nostalgia banger box because I just love cutting edge game engines. Quick note, while writing this I found out that you can't actually buy Unreal on Steam anymore, which is another absolute disgrace. Find another way to get it if you can. If they won't sell it to you, then they don't deserve your money anyway. Viscera Cleanup Detail. A game about cleaning up the bloody mess left behind after some horrible event has happened, leaving corpses and body parts everywhere. It's definitely a unique game, and cleaning can be kind of satisfying in a weird perfectionist sort of way. There's a bunch of joke mechanics added in to try and mess things up for you, which are funny when you're in on the joke, but get tiring pretty quickly once you've mopped up that same floor 3 times already. The real hilarity comes when you play it in multiplayer. There are so many ways to make the mess worse on purpose that it's just a matter of time before one of your friends ruins everything, and it's pretty dang hilarious. If you like cleaning somehow, you might like this solo, or if you've got a gang of goofball friends to mess around with, then you might like it too. Warhammer 40k Dawn of War 2, a real-time strategy game in the universe of the tabletop franchise. I'm much more of a 40k nerd than I am a strategy guy, but I think there's enough there for both kinds of people. It's a much more micro-focused RTS than a macro one. There's basically no base building, and it's more about tackling each fight in the correct way to give yourself the advantage whenever you can. I like this approach more. Macro economy management has always been a bit overwhelming for me, so it's nice to be able to just focus on the fights. Wolfenstein: The New Order. A more modern FPS, but in a more classic style. Running around blasting bad guys never gets old, and almost everything is designed around making that experience as satisfying as possible. Yeah, there's cover mechanics and a stealth system, but both are implemented in a way that feels right for the game, so it doesn't ruin what it's going for. I'm a big fan of this modern series. Wolfenstein: The Old Blood, a prequel to the previous, but made after it. There's a lot of small improvements to the mechanics from the previous one that makes everything just a little bit better. I'd take another 3 games like this and I'd be very happy. Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus, the sequel to the first one. There's a lot more cutscenes in this one, but I actually like them because I really like most of the characters and they're really well made. They definitely want you to not only enjoy blasting Nazis, but also really understand what makes the Nazis and everything they stand for so bad. It's a depth you wouldn't expect from a game like this. Yeah, there's some blunders in there and the ending sucks pretty hard, but overall I really like it. I'm patiently waiting for them to come back to this series because I'm ready to play another one of these. Youngblood doesn't count. XCOM: Enemy Unknown. Turn-based strategy about defeating Earth from an alien invasion. When everything goes according to plan, you feel like a tactical genius, and you'll often have to get pretty creative in order to come up with a plan that gets all your soldiers out of trouble. But you can't talk about XCOM without talking about RNG. I get that you need a way to determine when things happen or not, but having your soldier miss a point-blank shot that he needed to hit to not die is total bullshit. When you add the fact that soldiers die permanently and you need a high-level squad to stand a chance in the later missions, it's no wonder people resort to save scumming. It feels cheap to do that, but letting the game kill one of your best guys from some totally ludicrous cross-map shot feels even worse. Still, as you get better at the game, you can learn to avoid a lot of these situations, so it's not a total game breaker. I enjoyed my time with it. The escalation of the war that you're in keeps everything feeling bigger and tougher and more desperate all the time. You really do feel like you're fighting a war against an apocalyptic level threat. How cool is that? XCOM 2, sequel to the previous. For now you're more of a resistance force, so there's a bit of a guerrilla angle going on, though not that strong of one. It plays mostly the same as the first one, albeit with a complete overhaul on the enemies and your own weapons and abilities. I couldn't really say which one I like more. The only new complaint I'd have is about the way the time limit and the missions interact with the fog of war. Enemies aren't a threat until you see them for the first time, so you're encouraged to cover new ground slowly to not trigger too many of them at once. But then you're on a strict time limit and have to get a move on, which can lead to you getting completely overwhelmed if you move forward too quickly. The two systems work against each other, and since it feels totally unfair, you just end up save scumming your way through it. Still, I like it a lot. More XCOM goodness is good with me. And that, my dear friend, this is all my single player games. I implore you all to make wild assumptions about my person from these takes. Thank you. Now, onto the multiplayer games. Don't worry, there's nowhere near as many of these because I suck at most of them, so I don't play them as much. Apex Legends, an FPS battle royale game with some advanced movement. The worst part of this game is the fact it's a battle royale. The movement and the shooting and the weapons and the characters are all great, but, and I will stand by this, Battle Royale is a shitty game mode. Looting isn't fun, fights are too far apart, dying is too punishing, and the way the mode works almost guarantees that you will have to fight players far above your skill level if you ever want to get any wins. It's too much to fit all of my criticisms of the game mode in a video like this. They did try and fix this though by adding the arena mode, which focused on quick rounds with just 2 teams fighting. I loved that mode, and then they deleted it. Couldn't play it anymore, so they could focus on the mode that sucks. Thanks. I stopped playing after that. I don't know if they ever brought it back. Babel Royale. Scrabble, but it's a battle royale. I tried it because it was free and I was curious. Unfortunately, it doesn't play very well. You defeat the other players by making words that connect to their words, but there's no punishment for spamming letter combinations to try and get a word, so you just end up losing to some 2-letter combo that they randomly stumbled into first. Sadly, it's completely dead now, so you probably can't even play it if you wanted to. BattleBit Remastered, a team-based, objective-focused FPS. It's a lot of good chaotic fun. It has the problem that any large team game has, that adding more enemies to the other team leads to more ways you can just randomly die. More grenades being spammed at you, more people in places they shouldn't be, more snipers aimed at your head. You can't take it too seriously or you'll never enjoy it. But it's a nice refreshing return to what makes games fun. No bullshit, no padding, just a good game to shoot each other in. Bloons Tower Defense Battles. A competitive tower defense game. A really unique concept and a surprisingly strategic one. You've always got to maintain the balance between building towers to defend yourself and sending more mobs to the other player to try and kill them. There's a lot of different viable strategies you can use, so you can play in a style that suits you. But then they went and messed it all up by introducing pay-to-win elements. I don't know if this is still the case, but they had these boosters you had to pay real money for that you could use in a match to do all sorts of busted things. After losing to them 5 times in a row, that was it for me. Maybe they fixed it since then. It was a good game before that happened. Counter-Strike 2. What used to be called Counter-Strike Global Offensive. One of the premier competitive FPS games out there, at least it's supposed to be. It has had a massive cheating problem for years now. As you can tell from my playtime, I liked it a lot. I played 99% of that in the CSGO days, so I can't comment on the changes in CS2, but from what I know, it's mostly the same game. The thing that makes it good is how much your actions matter each round. Something as small as a single shot in the right place and time can win you the whole round, and that's a hell of a high when you're the one to pull it off. It also creates a lot of tension in almost every second of gameplay, which is both good and bad. Failure in this game feels so bad because your death can ruin the whole round, and it usually happens in an instant. I stopped playing because I just couldn't get good enough at it. I don't have the reflexes or the aim to compete at the level of matchmaking rank it wants to put me at, so I was always bottom of the scoreboard. That's not fun, so I just grew out of the game. If they ever fix the cheating problem, it will be a multiplayer giant for years to come. Crawl, a competitive local multiplayer dungeon crawler. A great one to play when you have some friends over and a couple of controllers handy. One of you is the adventurer, and the other players control the monsters. If you kill the adventurer, you can become him. First one to kill the boss as the adventurer wins. It's a really interesting twist on an idea. I've had a lot of fun with this one, but you do need some friends and spare controllers to play it with. The Culling, a battle royale game but with a focus on melee combat. I know I ranted about battle royale games a lot before, but this was my favourite one back when the concept was new. The melee focus made a lot of battle royale's problems less apparent. Fights generally lasted a long time, so there's a lot of chances to fight your way out of a bad situation and outskill your opponent, rather than just getting shot in the back of the head. There was also a crafting system to help you fill the gaps in your gear when you couldn't find the item you needed. They had a lot of good ideas in there. Sadly, the game went through a pretty dramatic downward spiral. The meta developed into a focus on ranged weapons and degenerate strategies, and yes, that defeated the whole point of the game. The devs never managed to get the meta in check, and update after update did not manage to fix it, so the game died. A real shame because I'd love to play the good version of this game again. Foxhole, a massively multiplayer war-fighting game. Two giant teams are in a constant war against each other in an attempt to take land and destroy the other. A really cool concept, but in reality it takes a very specific type of person to play and enjoy this properly. Everything is about cooperation, so you need friends to do stuff with. Playing alone is not much fun, because you get locked out of a lot of the really cool stuff like tanks. You'll also need to be playing consistently, because if you leave for a week, everything you knew from before is now completely gone. And if you don't have teammates awake while you're asleep, you might just wake up the day after a 10-hour session to find all the stuff you fought for destroyed. I had some great times with this when it was new, but ultimately I'm not dedicated enough to play this properly, so it's not really for me. Gang Beasts, multiplayer party fighting game. It's very silly fun, and there's nothing like skill or strategy to get in the way of that. It's a great one for messing about with some friends. It always leads to a lot of good laughs when I played it. Helldivers 2. A 4-player co-op shooter about facing overwhelming odds and beating them anyway with even more overwhelming firepower. Blasting robots and bugs is super satisfying with them blowing into chunks when they die. You can call in all these different weapons and bombs from your spaceship. They're all genuinely have different and relative use cases. There's a lot of good strategy in there too. Progression is generally fair. Yeah, it's a battle pass, but you can earn all the stuff on it for free pretty reasonably. A really solid game to come out in recent years. But, and there is a big but on this one, Sony tried their hardest to kill this game fairly recently. Long story short, you had to have a PlayStation account to play it at all, even if you played on PC without one for months, which was a deal breaker for a lot of players, and rightfully so. The community backlash made them walk back on this, mostly, but it left a sour taste in my mouth knowing they can just destroy the game like this anytime they want. I'll probably go back and play this more later when I forget about the whole ordeal, but I haven't touched it since they pulled that crap. Left 4 Dead 2, a 4-player co-op FPS. I've rolled the first one into this because there isn't much reason to play the first when you have this. All the old content is included in this one. Anyway, this game is a masterclass in co-op campaign design. The game gets you to stay together and work together, but in a way that doesn't feel awkward or forced. On the highest difficulties where the game is the most fun, all 4 of you need to be on it at all times or you're not going to beat the level. It makes you into a team and you're going to feel like best friends when you beat that expert campaign together by the seat of your pants. The versus mode is cool but kind of impossible to get into these days. You'll likely get sent into a lobby of guys who mastered it years ago and there's very little you can do to challenge them as a noob. Your team will probably just kick you for being bad anyway. It's amazing when the teams are balanced, but that's exceedingly rare to happen these days. Play it for the campaigns. No More Room in Hell, a free-to-play co-op first-person horror game. Fight your way through zombie-infested streets to try and get out in one piece. It focuses on a much slower and deliberate playstyle than something like Left 4 Dead. Ammo is scarce, but enemies are plentiful, so you'll have to be careful with your shots and get a lot of use out of your melee weapons. Every zombie kill takes a serious effort to achieve, and a single bite will cause you to turn, so you really have to think about every move you make. The one thing I'd complain about is the fast kid zombies they throw in there. They can often come out of nowhere and really go against how the rest of the game works. I've lost way too many runs to them and they don't really feel very fair. Still, a genuinely good horror type experience. Not a huge number of players these days, but it is free, so it's worth a shot to try and get a game going. Overcooked, a co-op cooking game, and an excellent co-op game at that. It forces you to cooperate and work together in order to get those good scores, but figuring out the best way you're going to do that is always entertaining. It's wildly chaotic, which always leads to a humorous story every time something goes wrong. And there's enough going on that you're always talking to your teammates. You can run your kitchen as a well-oiled machine or as a swirling mess of onions and burnt pizzas, and you'll have a good time either way. Overcooked 2. More of the good stuff. More levels, more mechanics, more crazy kitchen shenanigans to enjoy. Get it after you beat the first one. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. The main big FPS Battle Royale game. Ugh. Look, I really tried to like this one. I gave it loads of my time, but to me, this is the game that epitomizes everything wrong with Battle Royale as a game mode. You spend 10 minutes parachuting in and running around grabbing shit off the floor only to die instantly to some guy behind a tree somewhere that you couldn't have known was there. Then you get to have fun waiting another 10 minutes to get loaded into the next game. It's never ran well, even on a powerful machine, and the shooting always felt like ass. I always wanted it to be good, but it just never was. There aren't many games I'd say this about, but genuinely avoid this one. Quake Live. This is the modernised version of the multiplayer mode of Quake 3. It's, as far as I can tell, a very faithful recreation of the deathmatch experience, just running on more modern hardware. As I talked about in the Quake 3 review, if you can remember that far back, it's a very hard game to get into now when you're competing against veterans with over 20 years of experience in it. The skill gap between a noob and a pro is so high that you will struggle to even touch them a single time, while they can dominate the entire server. I know the answer is to just get good, but repeatedly bottom scoring every single game I played wasn't fun, so I didn't end up playing this very much. If the genre ever sees a resurgence and enough noobs like me turn up to play it, I'll definitely play a new game in this space. Rats Instagive 2.0, an FPS arena deathmatch that is essentially a game like Quake distilled down into its most basic form. There's only one weapon, a railgun, and it always kills in one shot. This simplification helps level the playing field a bit, because you only have to focus on getting one good shot at a time to score kills. I had loads of fun with this back when it was thriving, but as with a lot of older multiplayer games, it's mostly not played anymore. Apparently this one does see a comeback occasionally when they do a free weekend, so it might be worth wishlisting if you ever want to try it out. It's good simple fun, and that old Germa Star video of it is an all-time classic of YouTube. Team Fortress 2. Team-based, class-based, objective-based multiplayer FPS that is itself based. My favourite multiplayer game ever made. I still come back to this all the time because nothing has ever replaced it for me. In a world of hyper-competitive wannabe esports, TF2 is a light in the darkness because actually enjoying the game is put before training it like a skill and trying to grind stupid ranks. There's plenty of moments to make plays and make an impact, but you also have 11 other teammates helping you out, so even if you suck, it doesn't matter that much. You've got 9 classes to choose from, which is a nice amount of variety, but not the ungodly massive hero pools we see these days that require you to take a college course to learn how they all work. TF2 is what you make of it. Try your hardest and get a 20 kill streak if you want. Start a dance party if that's what you prefer. There's room for everyone in TF2 land. But, of course, I can't talk about TF2 without mentioning the bot crisis, and yeah, they're pretty bad. It is a travesty that a company as large as Valve has done nothing to try and address the issue in a game this good. A second but though, don't believe all the people that tell you the game is completely unplayable, because it's not. Sure, you'll struggle to play on official servers during off-peak hours, but if you stick to playing at the right times and visit some community servers, there's plenty of chances to play the game. Though, yes, hashtag fix TF2. We shouldn't have to do these workarounds. Post-script render here, I wrote the previous section at the start of the fix TF2 stuff, when bots were really being left to run rampant, but right now Valve is actually doing a lot to ban them, so that's really promising. Might be a good time to go and try this now if you haven't already. I left the section in previously though for posterity, because that's what I said originally. Unturned, a free-to-play open-world multiplayer PvP survival game. I played this a lot a long time ago, back when I didn't have a PC good enough to play much else. It's been constantly updated, so it's hard for me to say exactly what it's like now. Back when I played, you snuck around the map looking for guns and then used them to snipe people in the back of the head who didn't know you were there. It's a game that produced a lot of good stories because dying meant starting all over again, and that tension created all these high-stakes moments that felt exhilarating at the time. There's technically PvE as well, but I never found that interesting because the zombies never provide any meaningful challenge. Anyway, I used to like this a lot, but it's not my thing anymore. It's still surprisingly popular, so you can always check it out if you fancy it. It's free after all. War Thunder, yes, that thing all the YouTubers get sponsored by. It's a real game! Multiplayer vehicle combat with planes, tanks and boats, though hardly anyone actually plays the boats. To sum this up, this is the best game that I hate the most. I cannot think of another game that should be so good but tries so hard to make you hate it. You've got all these lovingly modelled real-world tanks depicted down to the finest detail, but good luck getting to use the ones you want because this game is grindy as shit. You've got this really deep, intricate damage system where your shot's penetration is realistically calculated against the exact armor profile of the spot you hit and does real damage to the components based on where you aim. But then all the maps suck with horrible, glaring design flaws and an eternal spawn camping problem. It is a good game, but I also hate it. If you want a vehicle combat game, this has all you could want in there, but you will have to be very patient to dig it all out. You have been warned. Rip any potential sponsorship money. Who's Your Daddy? A head-to-head parenting standoff. One player plays as the dad trying to keep the baby alive, while the baby does everything in its power to do the opposite. Sticking a fork into power outlets, drinking tasty bleach, standard baby activities. It's a game built around the joke, and if you and a friend find that funny, you'll have a grand old time. It's not at all balanced or fair or competitive, but why would it be? A game built for some good laughs if you've got a friend to share the last brain cell with. And that's all the multiplayer games. Feel free to tell me how bad I am at every single one of them, because you will probably be right every time. Next, I've got a special section just for the VR games. I kept these separate because I'm sure a lot of people won't be interested in them, so feel free to skip this section if that's you. For the rest of you, let's start with The American Dream. It's an on-rail shooter about gun culture in America. I get the message it's going for, but the whole thing is delivered by telling the same one joke over and over again for its whole runtime, and it's just not funny enough to make that work. Apex Construct, an exploration and bow fighting game. The fact it is an actual game with progression and a plot puts it a few notches above all the VR mini-games and experiences out there. The plot is actually quite interesting if you take the time to read it, and shooting robots with the bow fighting is pretty good. It's not very long for the price I paid for it when it was new, a phenomenon I've always called the VR tax. There's some clear teething troubles in there as well as studios try to figure out how to make a VR game actually work, but not enough to ruin the experience. I quite liked it. Arizona Sunshine, a zombie shooter game. One of the earlier VR titles, and it shows. It was built around teleport movement, and in general you don't really feel present in the world. I had fun with it though, since you have to get headshots to be effective, there's some real challenge to the combat, and shooting in VR just feels cooler in general anyway. Not a bad game if you were just getting into VR, but going back to this after playing newer VR titles makes it feel quite dated. Beat Saber. Like Guitar Hero, but instead of a guitar you have lightsabers. This was for the longest time the most played VR title on Steam, and it's easy to see why when you get into it. It's like a fun workout, and it feels like an achievement to be knackered at the end of an intense song. It's endlessly replayable and doesn't require walking around, so no motion sickness. I do love this game, but I do hope it doesn't end up being the peak of VR gaming like Wii Sports was for motion controls. Blade and Sorcery, medieval style melee combat built around a realistic physics system. Now, this is the game I would point to if I wanted to say how melee combat in VR should feel. Attacks feel weighty, and you have to think about how you're swinging if you're actually going to land a hit, because the opponents aren't just going to stand there and let you hit them. I get so immersed in this one that sometimes after taking down an enemy, I worry about his grieving widow. At the time I played this, it was just a sandbox where you could mess around with the weapons, but by the looks of it, the devs have been hard at work trying to add some real content to it, so I'm looking forward to playing that when I get my VR out once again. Boneworks, a linear campaign game with shooting and melee, exploration and puzzle solving, and even some climbing and platforming. The big thing that separates it from most VR games is how instead of being a floating head with two floating hands like you are in most VR games, you have a full physical body and everything you do is controlled by a full physics engine. This game was groundbreaking when it came out. The interactivity you could have with the world was like nothing that came before it. The opening hours of this game are one of my favourite VR experiences I've ever had. It shows off all the amazing things this game is capable of, and I felt like a kid in a toy shop playing with it all. Sadly, the actual game doesn't quite live up to the expectation this sets. It's good, but a lot of it is kind of forgettable, and it could have done more with the systems it set up. Still, I'd call this one a must play if you're serious about VR. Though make sure you're used to VR first, you'll need it for this one to prevent yourself from throwing up. Budget Cuts, a stealth game about sneaking your way out of an office building of murderous robots. It's another game that shows how early we were into VR development at the time. It's built around teleport movement and the environments all feel very samey. There's only so many cubicles and staff break rooms I can look at, and mechanically it doesn't do anything interesting. It's like they're hoping the novelty of VR will carry it through to the end, which at the time it came out it probably did, but I'd played much deeper VR games by the time I played this, so it was like playing Pong when I'd already played Pac-Man. Compound, a retro-style shooter roguelike. This is one I really enjoyed playing. It is on the face of it just a shooter in VR, but it's built everything around that VR interface. Weapons are all one-handed and easy to shoot that way because two-handed weapons mostly suck in VR. Enemy shots move slowly enough that you can dodge them by moving your real-life body, and nothing requires you to move too quickly and risk puking all over your expensive headset. It was good when I last played it, and it's had a few updates since then, so it's probably even better now. Doom VFR, a VR spin-off of the 2016 Doom. You'd think Doom would be too fast-paced to work in VR, but it translates surprisingly well with the changes they've made to it. I liked Doom, so getting to do more Doom in VR was definitely a win for me. There's something special about seeing an 8-foot-tall demon bearing down on you like that. I only wish there was more of it. The VR tax was strong in this one, though it's a bit cheaper now. Fruit Ninja VR. You know, like the mobile game? Like, literally, it's just the mobile game but in VR. It's not for me. I want something with a bit more meat on it nowadays, and Beat Saber does a better job of scratching the itch this one tries to fill anyway. Gorilla Tag. Play tag, but you're all gorillas and you move around using your arms to propel yourself and climb and swing on trees. It's the most interesting movement system I've seen in a VR game so far. It is a genuine joy to just run around the level seeing where you can get yourself into. Playing the actual tag game is rarely that interesting though. Some players are so good that they're basically untouchable, so I just stuck to monkeying around. It is also populated mostly by children with open mics, so it's one I always play on mute. It is a good VR workout game though. Gorn, an arcade hack and slash arena game. It's a gore-based power fantasy, plain and simple. You can chop off a guy's arm, use it to bash another guy to death, and then rip the third guy's head off with your bare hands. It's not all that challenging, but that's not the point. Go blow off some steam with some good old-fashioned gratuitous violence. Half-Life Alyx. It's Half-Life in VR. Almost certainly the best production values in a VR game so far. It looks amazing, it's immersive as heck, and it all around feels like a proper, full-on game made for VR with a top-level development budget that you can see being put to work. I enjoyed my time with it a lot, but when I ended it felt kind of, I don't know, disappointed? The game doesn't do anything wrong, but I guess I just hope to be more blown away. It feels like this might be VR's peak, and that would still lead to many good games, but part of me just dreamed of something more. It's selfish, I know, but that's how I feel. This one is, however, a must-play for any VR fan. It's very good. Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes, a co-op game about defusing a bomb with your friends. The player in VR has to defuse the bomb, while the one outside of VR has to read the instructions to them to allow them to do it. It's a great way to turn VR into a multiplayer experience and leads to some real teamwork and banter, which is always the best part of a co-op game. If you have a friend to play it with, go for it, it's really fun. The Lab. A set of mini-games designed to show off what VR can do. It's free, the games are fun for a bit, and it's covered with some nice Portal-style charm. You can't go wrong with trying this one out. Mass Exodus Redux. An asymmetric multiplayer game where one player is in VR and acts as a robot overlord, trying to track down and catch the rogue mini-robots controlled by your friends outside of VR. Another great way to make one VR headset fun for multiple people. The mind games that arise from it can get super intense, and you're going to feel like a genius whenever you pull off something great. This is the sort of game only VR can truly pull off well, so definitely give it a go if you've got a few friends over to try it with. No Man's Sky. While not a VR exclusive, I've only ever played it in VR, so I thought it best to mention it here. Explore the galaxy in your spaceship and wander around alien planets, discovering all the unique life forms that live on them. I gotta say, wow. In VR, this game is so gosh darn breathtaking to look at. In no other game have I spent as much time just standing around taking in the sights as this one. When some giant alien space worm flies over the top of you while you crane your neck to the purple sky, it's something special. I've never gotten that far into the mechanics of the game, so I don't know that much about what's in it, but man, I just like looking at stuff in this. It's really pretty. Pavlov VR, a tactical multiplayer versus shooter. Easiest way to sum it up is to call it Counter-Strike in VR. It was a big deal when it was new, but it has had trouble keeping lobbies full when I last played it, and looking at Steam charts, it doesn't look like it's gotten any better. My main issue with it was how bad the feedback on shooting was. I found it almost impossible to ever hit anyone with any real accuracy, even with hours and hours of practicing. VR struggles really hard with making two-handed guns feel good to use, and this game's all about two-handed guns. Could just be me being bad, but I really tried. I think we're going to need a good mainstream gun controller to make games like this reach their potential. Richie's Plank Experience. Not really a game, more of a fear of heights simulator. As someone who is terrified of heights, it definitely works in provoking a fear response in me. But that's it. It costs 11 quid at the moment, and there's only really an hour of content in here at most. They added a few mini-games in there, which helps a bit, but none of them are things that make it worth owning. If you can get it on sale and have a few friends you want to watch panic and flail around for an hour, go nuts, but otherwise you can miss this one. Space Pirate Trainer. a wave-based arcade shooter. Robots fly at you from all around and you've got to blast them while dodging their shots back at you. Since you've got to physically dodge the shots by contorting your body around, it's an experience you can only really get in VR, which is what I love best. There's not a huge amount to it, there's essentially just one game mode that you'll play repeatedly, but it's addictive enough to make that not feel like a problem. It's a good beginner game for VR since you don't actually have to walk around anywhere. Super Hot VR. Time moves only when you do. This time, literally. This game rocks. I'd say it's my favourite VR game I've played. The time mechanics just have so much room for depth when your physical body is the one controlling them. Dodging bullets in slow motion is the action movie experience, and now you get to do it live in person and it is so much fun. I end almost every level laying on the floor because I've gotten so into the dodging that that's where I've ended up. The campaign's not that long, but they added a bunch of New Game Plus challenge modes that really mix up the gameplay in unique ways. I've beaten all of them and I love doing it. I only wish this had mod support or something so we could get more levels out of it. I would play the hell out of all of them. Tilt Brush, a 3D art tool that lets you create whatever beautiful thing you want from inside the painting. I'm not an artist, but just in case some of you are, I thought I'd give this a mention. VR's not just all games, you know. VR the Diner Duo, an asymmetric co-op game about running a diner with your friend. The VR player is in the kitchen making food and the keyboard player is waiting tables and taking the orders. It's a fun and cute game, my girlfriend loved playing this one with me. It can be silly fun if you want, or you can take it seriously and try for the best scores for a more intense experience. No complaints here, this is just a fun game. The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners. Zombie survival in VR. Explore ruined streets, stab zombies in the face, bring your loot home to make better stuff and repeat. It's one of the most immersive VR games I've played. There was numerous times when playing it where I forgot that my life wasn't legitimately in danger. It does a really good job of setting up that atmosphere. I really like how it handles zombie killing as well. It makes it challenging by making every kill take effort to accomplish, so you can't just mow through hordes without care. The human enemies though kinda suck. They have a bad tendency of just instantly shooting you the moment you leave cover. They're more annoying to fight than engaging. Great besides that though. And that is all the VR games. It's a space very much defined by its limitations and small player base. I hope it'll go somewhere someday because I love the mindset that VR can put you into, where everything you're doing just feels real. I hope one day we really do see it hit its full potential. But with that is every Steam game that I own reviewed as quickly as I can. I'm sorry if it got a bit repetitive in there, it's surprisingly hard to say something different every time for hundreds of games, and I also hope that I didn't come off too negative. It's generally much easier to say something bad about a game than something good, but I'm really not a fan of the old sarcastic and angry video game reviewer trope, so I tried my best to keep it positive. But of course, don't let me tell you how to think. These are all just the takes of one guy on the internet after all. If I've introduced you to just one new game today that you're going to go and play, I'd consider this video a massive success. It's crazy to see almost my whole PC gaming history just laid out like this for all to see. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that, but that's all I've got for you today. Be sure to click the buttons to make the numbers go up, and I'll see you all next time. Peace!